Good morning, America. Breaking overnight, attack on Iran. The U.S. and Israel launching a wide-scale assault during daytime in Tehran. Massive plumes of smoke seen rising in the capital, including near the offices of the Supreme Leader.
President Trump with the late-night message to Americans.
Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime, a vicious group of very hard, terrible people.
And this stark warning.
The lives of courageous American heroes may be lost, and we may have casualties. That often happens in war.
The strikes following a massive military buildup, ships and fighter jets. The president citing Iran's nuclear program and addressing the people of Iran directly.
Now is the time to seize control of your destiny and to unleash the prosperous and glorious future that is close within your reach.
Now this morning, Iran firing back, launching retaliatory strikes, drones and missiles targeting Israel.
As you can hear, the air raid sirens have now started here in Tel Aviv.
And targeting U.S. assets in the region. We have team coverage of these fast-moving developments from the region to the White House and expert analysis. What's next? This is a special edition of Good Morning America, Attack on Iran.
Good morning, America. We want to get right to that breaking news that you're waking up to this morning. The U.S. and Israel launching joint strikes on Iran. U.S. officials confirming to ABC News that this is a wide-scale operation expected to potentially last for several days.
And you're seeing here video out of Tehran shows smoke rising from nearby government buildings. A source briefed directly on the attack telling ABC News the targets include military sites and defense installations. Iran now saying it has launched retaliatory strikes against U.S. assets.
And President Trump posting a video overnight on what the Pentagon is calling Operation Epic Fury, saying the strikes are aimed against Iran's efforts to rebuild its nuclear program and urging Iranian citizens to take control of their government. We have extensive team coverage, of course, of this major news event. We're going to begin here with Chief Foreign Correspondent Ian Pannell in Tel Aviv. Ian, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Gio. It has been a momentous morning here in the Middle East. We were woken up around 8 a.m. to the sound of sirens, an alert on all of our phones telling us that Israel had launched a military operation against Iran. It became clear very soon after that this was a joint U.S.-Israeli operation. As you say, targeting Iran's nuclear facilities, targeting its missile facilities, but ABC News now confirming through sources that they also struck at the Ayatollah himself, the supreme leader of Iran, and the president. No news on whether or not those strikes were successful. This morning, the US and Israel launching a major wide-scale daytime attack on Iran after weeks of growing tension and military buildup. This massive plume of smoke towering over Tehran, stemming from multiple locations throughout the capital city. Smoke seen rising near government offices and Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's residence, but no word this morning if the 86-year-old cleric was in his office at the time.
A short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran.
In an 8-minute video posted shortly after the strikes began, President Trump confirming what he called major combat operations in Iran. The operation called Epic Fury over what he called imminent threats from the regime.
They attempted to rebuild their nuclear program and to continue developing long-range missiles that can now threaten our very good friends and allies in Europe, our troops stationed overseas, and could soon reach the American homeland.
The president speaking directly to the people of Iran, saying this:
when we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take. This will be probably your only chance for generations.
And with this stark warning that American lives may be lost in this mission.
The Iranian regime seeks to kill. The lives of courageous American heroes may be lost, and we may have casualties. That often happens in war. But we're doing this not for now. We're doing this for the future, and it is a noble mission.
Multiple officials telling ABC News the operation's expected to potentially last several days, with targets including Iranian military sites, government buildings, Iranian intelligence assets and defense installations, and cyber. The US and Israel conducting the assault from the air and sea. The US military poised to attack after a massive build-up in the region in recent weeks. Recent satellite images showing nearly a dozen F-22 fighter jets at a base in southern Israel, rows of refueling and reconnaissance aircraft in Saudi Arabia, and 2 aircraft carrier strike groups moving into position. Here in Israel, sirens warning residents to shelter in place, bracing for Iran's retaliation. The nation under a state of emergency. As you can hear, the air raid sirens have now started here in Tel Aviv. We've heard that the Iranians have launched, we presume, missiles at Israel after the attack on Iran earlier today. And Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu releasing a statement thanking Trump and calling for a new regime in Iran, saying the time has come for all segments of the Iranian people to throw off the yoke of tyranny and bring about a free and peaceful Iran. Just last June, the US and Israel had worked together to bomb Iran's nuclear sites in Operation Midnight Hammer. Trump saying then that the facilities were obliterated. Now, as he says Iran has started to rebuild their nuclear capabilities, he insists this time will annihilate them once again, adding this warning to the Iranian regime.
You must lay down your weapons and have complete immunity, or, in the alternative, face certain death.
Well, Iran had warned that if it was attacked, it would respond, that US assets and facilities in the region would be seen as legitimate targets, and that's exactly what's happened this morning. We've seen multiple attempted strikes, most of them intercepted, at a number of countries that host US bases, from Qatar, Jordan, Kuwait, and Iran saying that it will continue to reply, it will continue to target those, as well as here in Israel. It may have been one thing to start this operation, but given its broad scope, stopping it and concluding it is going to be a very different thing. Janae?
It certainly will be, Ian. We are grateful for your reporting. Our thanks to you. Now let's get right to the White House. Chief White House correspondent Mary Bruce is there with the latest. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, Janae. Well, President Trump is monitoring these strikes from his Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida and vowing that this massive campaign will devastate Iran's military, raise its nuclear program, and is now calling for Iranians to overthrow the government. Now, for weeks, the president has stressed his preference for a diplomatic solution, but it was clear that his patience with talks was running thin. Yesterday, the president telling us that he was, quote, not happy with how negotiations were going. He is arguing that these strikes are necessary now to defend Americans against an imminent threat, but providing no clear evidence of that. And now the president, who ran promising to keep America out of foreign wars, is saying that American lives may now be lost. Janae.
And Mary, let's talk through his rationale and that imminent threat that he has mentioned, because the president has said very little publicly about why these strikes are needed now.
Yeah, and tension has been escalating for weeks. Remember, back in January, the president promised to aid those anti-government protesters, telling them that help was on the way. Now, since then, he has been pressed repeatedly on why strikes would be necessary now, especially given that he continues to claim he, quote, obliterated Iran's nuclear program in those strikes last spring. But Trump has not made the case publicly that Iran is closer to a nuclear weapon now, and he has not sought congressional approval for this attack. And while he alleges that Iran is working on a missile that could soon reach the U.S. intelligence has concluded that Tehran wouldn't be capable of that for another 9 years, Janae.
So many questions this morning. Mary, our thanks to you.
All right, Janae, let's bring in our chief global affairs anchor, Martha Raddatz. And Martha, we noted Iran launching retaliatory strikes on U.S. bases in the region. What more do we know about that, and which U.S. assets could be most at risk?
Well, we have some specifics now. Missiles have been launched towards Kuwait, Bahrain. That missile actually landed Al Udeid in Qatar, and that's where 10,000 U.S. forces are, and the UAE. So they're launching at all these bases. They did it almost immediately after they were hit. Iran was clearly prepared. They clearly had a plan about how to retaliate. So far, we have heard of no casualties, but sometimes it takes time. Back in 2020, when they hit Al-Assad Air Base in Iraq, shock. The president came out, President Trump at the time, came out and said there were no casualties. We learned later there were many concussive injuries, traumatic brain injuries, nearly 100 of those. So we are waiting to see what is happening at these bases. Those ships are particularly in Bahrain, vulnerable in that area, but this is something we are watching, and the retaliations are likely to continue with.
And Martha, we also heard that ominous warning from President Trump today that U.S. lives could be lost. Those comments getting a lot of attention already. What does that tell you about the scale of this operation and what comes next?
It's massive. I mean, they are telling us that it is massive. And the targeting, as Ian pointed out, if they are going for the supreme leader and the president of Iran. There are some satellite images coming out showing that compound that the New York Times has obtained, that the supreme leader's compound was hit. We have no idea whether he was actually in it or the president was in his home, but it was daytime. I think normally if it was nighttime, they probably wouldn't be sleeping there because they realized that President Trump was serious about what he was going to do. And back in June, I think they moved around to make sure they weren't in those compounds or residences. Again, we don't know this time. But you've also got President Trump saying, lay down your arms, as we've been saying. This is a very, very risky operation, and it is unclear how that would even work. I've been to Iran many, many times, and we've seen those brave, courageous protesters in the street, but you also have hardliners, millions and millions of hardliners and IRGC military. This may be a very difficult. He has not explained how that would happen. Lay down your arms. He said you'll be okay. If you don't, you're going to be killed. So this is something I think will last many, many days ahead of us. Whit.
And a desperate regime trying to protect its very survival in the coming days. Martha Raddatz, thank you so much. Gio?
Okay, Whit, for more on what's been named Operation Epic Fury by the administration, let's go ahead and bring in ABC News contributor and retired Colonel Steve Ganyard. Steve, thank you so much for being here. So, Steve, we saw that strike back in June to take out Iranian nuclear infrastructure. President Trump now citing that nuclear threat again. Can you take us through what we know about Iran's nuclear capabilities?
Yeah, Gio, it's very difficult to tell how effective those strikes were in June. As you see, the satellite images, all they look like are little pinpricks, because what they had to do is drop these hardened penetrating weapons that would dive deep down into those underground facilities. So having no way to get in there and see what damage was actually done, it was all based on estimates. And most of the public estimates were that we set the program back about 1 or 2 years. The president said we obliterated it, but because the Iranians say we will eventually have a nuclear weapon, they were beginning to rebuild it. The real concern here was the 1,000 pounds of highly enriched uranium that disappeared. The IAEA had no idea where it is. The U.S. doesn't know where it is. And that amount of plutonium, or that amount of highly enriched uranium, can build up to about 10 bombs.
And Steve, as we've seen in the past, it's pretty unusual to conduct a strike in daylight. This happened this morning after the sun came up there. So is that part of the element of surprise here?
Absolutely. This is the first time the U.S. has conducted a major operation against a formidable foe during daylight hours. But that was what they wanted to do. They wanted to catch them off guard. So there was all part of a deception plan back in D.C. The president said maybe we'll continue the discussions. Secretary Rubio was scheduled to go to Israel on Monday. So everybody was thinking, well, maybe the talks will go on a little bit longer. And really, this had been planned for months. The president said he'd had enough. He ordered the strikes and apparently caught most of the Iranian regime off guard.
And this begs the question now, what's the Iran firepower like? We know that they can't reach the United States yet, but U.S. assets in the region, they're a different story.
That's true. There are still thousands of short-range and intermediate-range missiles that can reach our allies in the Gulf regions and all the way to Israel. So that's the concern. That's what you see U.S. and Israeli jets doing right now, going out and looking for those launchers to try to destroy the launchers before they can have missiles put on them. But the real concern here going forward is going to be how much more can they do? We know that the U.S. is doing things we've never done before, such as going after the Iranian Navy. Apparently strikes all up and down the Persian Gulf coast that have occurred over the past 6 or 7 hours that will sink anything that the Iranians have that could threaten the Strait of Hormuz, which we know is that major waterway that carries about 20% of the world's oil on a daily basis.
And we're told all of this could take days. Steve Ganyard, thank you so much. Janae.
All right, Gio. And as we mentioned, Iran has launched retaliatory strikes in the region. ABC's Marcus Moore joins us live in Doha, Qatar, as emergency alerts went out. And Marcus, this followed those shelter-in-place orders from the embassy there?
Yeah, that shelter-in-place order is still in place, Janae, and it's been a very tense day here in Qatar. We are hearing sporadic and very loud booms in the air. It's likely outgoing air defense interceptors as Qatar tries to stop those incoming missiles that Martha was noting earlier. And the Al Udeid base, the largest American base in the Middle East, is here in Qatar and is a target of this retaliation. So certainly Americans have been on high alert throughout much of the day today. Those emergency alert messages went out to cell phones here in Doha. Also, those messages warning people to stay away from military sites. And there were alerts telling people to shelter in place. The airspace also closed in several countries here in the region, including over Qatar, where we are right now. No flights landing or taking off from the airport. So what has been 8 months of relative calm in the region was broken today, and with now there's renewed concern about a wider war in the region.
Marcus Moore for us. You and the team, please stay safe. Let's go ahead and bring in ABC's Lama Hassan in London. And we're hearing, Lama, reports from the region about the Iranian response. The UAE saying that a civilian was killed by falling debris. What are you hearing? And I understand about half a dozen countries are experiencing this response.
You're absolutely right, Whit. I am hearing reports from my relatives in Dubai. They've been hearing several missiles overhead this morning, and they're also hearing them being intercepted. The United Arab Emirates Defense Ministry issuing a statement saying they've successfully intercepted a number of missiles from Iran targeting the country, confirming missile debris in a residential area has killed one civilian. And I just want to give you an idea of what people in the region are going through right now. My relatives who live in Doha have also been hearing numerous loud explosions all morning long. They said that the blast was so loud that their windows and homes have been shaking. It's unclear what the target is, but as Marcus was saying, remember, the biggest U.S. base in the Middle East is in Qatar, the Al Udeid base. A reminder that they don't have bomb shelters in Qatar. They're not used to hearing the sounds of missiles and explosions. So as you can imagine, this is an extremely tense and frightening time for the residents in the region. Gio.
Extremely tense there in the Middle East. Lama Hassan, thank you so much. And here at home, law enforcement is on high alert. ABC's chief investigative correspondent Aaron Katersky is tracking that. And Aaron, you're hearing about plans to step up security at sensitive locations.
And that is already happening this morning, Gio. Good morning. Police departments across the United States, particularly in places with Jewish, Israeli, and Iranian populations, had been listening to President Trump's statements about Iran and quietly preparing for this moment. So this morning, they are in New York, Los Angeles, and other communities affected by the joint U.S.-Israel strike on Iran, stepping up security presence and patrols at cultural centers, diplomatic buildings, and religious sites like synagogues and mosques, anything that could be considered a possible target. We should say there is no specific threat domestically, but the fear is this strike on Iran could inspire attacks on the U.S. homeland. Somebody could act out violently in this country. Just this week, trial began in Brooklyn federal court of a Pakistani man with ties to Iran who was accused of attempting to try and assassinate President Trump. There have been other accusations lodged at Iran, Janae, where they have targeted dissidents, political figures, and others on American soil.
And that's certainly why we're on heightened alert here at home, Aaron. Thank you. And lawmakers from both sides of the aisle are reacting this morning to the attacks on Iran and the decision to carry out this strike. ABC's Jay O'Brien is in D.C. tracking that reaction. Good morning to you, Jay.
Janae, good morning to you. We just got some breaking news. I just got another source texting me moments ago saying that a group of top congressional leaders in the so-called Gang of Eight were briefed prior to these strikes by Secretary of State Marco Rubio. There was also another behind closed doors Gang of Eight briefing earlier this week on Tuesday, remember, just hours before the State of the Union. And top Democrats emerged from that briefing with some serious concerns. I want to read to you what Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer said when he emerged from that briefing on Tuesday. He said, quote, "This is serious and the administration has to make its case to the American people. We know that Democrats in both the House and Senate are planning to force votes on the floors of both of those chambers on war powers resolutions meant to curtail the president's war powers in Iran. And the question is, will any Republicans join them in those efforts? We have seen a handful of Republicans in previous votes like this break with the president and vote to rein in his war powers. And one of them is Thomas Massie, who's a Republican from Kentucky who's often broken with the president on issues. He posted this morning, I want to read to you exactly what he said. You see it there on your screen, that these are, quote, acts of war unauthorized by Congress. There are some lawmakers who met with President Trump in the White House days ago on Thursday, a group of Republican senators. And in that group was Senator Lindsey Graham, who's long been hawkish on Iran. We're also hearing from him this morning. I want to give you his reaction. Graham said, quote, this is, quote, the end of the largest state sponsor of terrorism is upon us. And he says this will lead to, quote, freedom for the long-suffering Iranian people. Janae.
All right, Jay O'Brien, thank you for that. We will continue following that reaction. We'll have much more on the breaking news out of Iran coming up.
Still ahead here, more on the breaking developments on the joint military strike on Iran, the ongoing operation, and escalating tensions. We have team coverage when GMA returns in just a moment.
Welcome back to GMA on this Saturday morning as we are following the latest on this major breaking news story you're waking up to. The U.S. and Israel launching a major attack on targets across Iran.
Yeah, the first strikes targeting Tehran in the early morning hours. Smoke could be seen rising from the capital. President Trump vowing to eliminate Iran's nuclear program and calling on citizens to take over the government.
Yeah, let's go ahead and go back to our team coverage here with Chief Foreign Correspondent Ian Pannell in Tel Aviv right now as Israel faces Iran's retaliatory strikes. Ian, good morning once again. What are you seeing there?
Yeah, that's right, Whit. It has been a very full-on morning. I have to say, we were woken up at 8 a.m. The sound of a air raid siren, alerts on everyone's phone saying Israel had launched this joint strike on Iran and that it was going to be ongoing. A state of emergency imposed here. All shops, all businesses, schools, everything is closed. People hunkering down at home. And this is part of what we're now seeing, this kind of large-scale attack after weeks of growing tension and this military build-up. As I say, Israel declared a state of emergency. Also in other countries around the region where there are U.S. bases, where there are U.S. allies, they've also had to intercept Iranian missiles. Whit?
And Ian, what more are you learning about what's happening inside Iran right now? And I understand you're getting new information about whether Iranian leadership were targeted as well.
Yeah, that's right. So sources telling ABC News that the Iranian president, Pezeshkian, and the Iranian supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, were both targeted by these joint Israeli-U.S. strikes. Now, we don't know whether they were successful in the eyes of military planners or not, but the Iranians, for their part, are reporting that a girls' school was hit by either Israeli or American strike. They're quoting dozens of girls at that school killed. This is being reported by Iranian state-run media. We can't independently verify those claims. Meanwhile, the internet cut off inside Iran. And I think people there are obviously living in a state of terror. They can hear the bombs, they can hear sirens, but they're not getting news. And the warnings that are being issued by the US and Israel telling them to move away from military installations just won't be getting through. But it certainly feels that we're just at the very beginning of what could be a long and bloody campaign.
Yeah, and the targeting of Iranian leadership, if true, is a significant escalation. Ian Pannell for us. We appreciate it once again. Gio?
All right, let's go to Chief Washington Correspondent Jonathan Karl now. And John, we know that President Trump has been weighing strikes for weeks. So what do you make of his decision here and what he had to say overnight?
Well, first about what he said overnight, it sure sounded like for the first time he was telling the American people that we may be in for an extended military conflict with Iran. As for the decision itself, this is a momentous decision for Donald Trump and the Trump presidency, potentially a defining, or Gio, I should say, a redefining moment for Donald Trump. This is somebody who came into politics talking about ending what he called forever wars. He billed himself as somebody profoundly different from George W. Bush and his decision to attack Iraq, something he said that he had always opposed, that he didn't want foreign entanglements. And now we see him launching a major military campaign, not just to destroy Iran's nuclear program, but to actually change the regime. Just moments ago, I heard from one of Trump's key supporters in his MAGA movement, Tucker Carlson. I had asked him this morning what he made, and several other prominent supporters of the president, what he made of this. And this is what Tucker Carlson told me of the president's decision to attack Iran. Keep in mind, Tucker Carlson is a prominent supporter of Donald Trump, spoke at his convention, was at the White House as recently as last week. And Tucker Carlson told me it is absolutely disgusting and evil. So I think that there is the potential for significant blowback from some of the president's strongest supporters for what's just happened.
Well, John, on that point, what has he done to prepare the country and his supporters for this drastic move, what you just called a momentous decision?
I mean, remarkably little, Gio. If you think back, it may seem like eons ago, but to the president's State of the Union address, he said, almost 2 hours worth of an address, and he said remarkably little about Iran beyond touting his attack just last summer on the nuclear program, which he said again in that speech had obliterated Iran's nuclear program. So why is the United States now engaging in an even bigger attack on Iran? And it seems to me like the president has done very little to explain to the American people or even to his core supporters why the United States is now engaged in a war with Iran.
Yeah, and the White House had been signaling limited strikes. This looks significantly bigger than that, and we'll be following this for days, as we're told. John Carl Forrest, we appreciate it.
Our large military buildup in the region, so we want to bring in Lieutenant General Dan Karbler, a former commander of the U.S. Army Space and Middle Defense Command. Lieutenant General Karbler, thank you so much for being with us. We have seen Israeli operations inside Iran in the past. We saw U.S. strikes last year, but those were much more limited than what we're seeing this morning.
Yeah, Janae, and I, we've seen limited Iranian responses in the past to the 12-day war, kind of a simple, not complex attack of 14 missiles that came into Qatar. Not that 14 missiles is something to be dismissed, but now we're seeing the Iranian response as a much more complex, coordinated attack across a broader front across the Gulf, targeting different facilities in Bahrain, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, and what I've heard is in Saudi Arabia as well. So the response is much broader than we experienced before. And as you said, our attacks obviously not as limited as they were before either. So big potential for even further escalation here. It will be interesting now to see what our reattack schedule is going to be and what targets we're going to be reattacking as we do our initial battle damage assessment.
And can you talk about the significance of these attacks targeting Iran's supreme leader and president, and what kind of risks do these strikes carry for the U.S.?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, President Trump, he listed as one of his objectives was regime change, and you can't do that if you don't take out the leadership. Some of the impacts could be emboldening the protesters. However, that's going to be countered with the fact that, the Iranians, brutally responded to any kind of protesters that are going on within the country. Iranian officials knew that they had to be targeted, so they're going to their bunkers, they're going underground, they're moving frequently. So being able to have the right intel to be able to target them will get tougher and tougher. So in addition to just those key regime leaders, I really think what we're going to see now is continuation of command and control, attacking the Iranians' military command and control nodes that they have out there, continue to attack their abilities to launch ballistic missiles, the different tunnels, the silos, the tactical transporter electric launchers that they use to move their missiles around to prevent them from being able to respond back. And then just any kind of Iranian air defense systems will obviously still be attacked in order that our bombers, fighters can continue to prosecute the fight and get to those targets within Iran.
And, you know, you mentioned those 14 missiles that were launched on the UAE, talking about the Iranian response. What does this signal? Does this show that this regime has its back against the wall?
Yeah, it really does. And I think what they're trying to do is, show that, this is now escalated beyond just an attack into a single country. I believe it's going to backfire against them because some of the Gulf countries that might have been neutral or just staying on the fence or not wanting to respond now, they are going to have to respond. Their territories have been targeted. And we'll see, how effective the Iranian attacks were and how effective the Iranian targeting has been thus far. But make no bones about it, our Gulf allies in the region now are going to have, they're going to have some fortitude to go ahead and partner up with the U.S. or at least want to be able to respond themselves to the Iranian attacks because that's what their citizens are going to demand.
Yeah, certainly a big escalation that we are seeing. Lieutenant General Dan Karbler, we appreciate you being with us this morning.
Back now on GMA with former President Bill Clinton testifying before members of Congress in the Epstein investigation, an appearance behind closed doors that lasted hours, and ABC's Olivia Rubin has the latest.
This morning, former President Bill Clinton releasing this new video after his marathon 6-hour testimony on his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein.
I saw nothing and I did nothing wrong.
Clinton reiterating much of the opening statement he gave to the Republican-led House Oversight Committee, adamant he saw no wrongdoing.
First, I had no idea of the crimes Epstein was committing. I know what I saw, and more importantly, what I didn't see. And I know what I did, and more importantly, what I didn't do.
Clinton was friendly with Epstein decades ago, but has never been accused of wrongdoing. Photos show them together at the White House. And the Justice Department recently released these new images showing the former president in the pool with a woman and Epstein's convicted associate, Ghislaine Maxwell. Sources telling us the former president was asked if he had sex with that unknown woman in the photo. He said he did not and didn't know her. Flight logs also show the former president took 4 international trips on Epstein's private plane in 2002 and 2003 to locations including Rwanda and China. Clinton spokesperson says those trips were for humanitarian work for the Clinton Foundation. Epstein would not be investigated for alleged sexual crimes against minors until 2005. Last summer, Ghislaine Maxwell saying this during an interview with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche.
I didn't see President Clinton being interested in Epstein. He was just a rich guy with a plane.
Clinton telling the committee.
But even with 20/20 hindsight, I saw nothing that ever gave me real pause. We're only here today because Epstein hid it from everyone so well for so long.
The marathon testimony coming one day after Hillary Clinton went before the same committee.
I don't know how many times I had to say I did not know Jeffrey Epstein.
Her husband firing back.
Republicans made Hillary testify yesterday, and she had nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. Nothing, including her, was simply not right.
And back at the White House, President Trump, who was friends with Epstein for nearly 2 decades before he says he ended the relationship, now expressing support for Clinton, despite publicly ordering his Justice Department to investigate him.
I don't like seeing him deposed, but, they certainly went after me a lot more than that. I don't like seeing him. Look, I like him, and I don't like seeing him deposed.
And Democrats now say that Republicans have set a new precedent here, and they now want President Trump to have to do the same thing, come before the committee and testify to what he knows about Jeffrey Epstein. But remember, Republicans have the majority, and they say that's not happening. Gio.
All right, a lot to watch there. Olivia Rubin, thank you so much, and we'll be right back here.
Good morning, America. Breaking overnight, attack on Iran. The U.S. and Israel launching a wide-scale assault during daytime in Tehran. Massive plumes of smoke seen rising in the capital, including near the offices of the Supreme Leader.
President Trump with the late-night message to Americans.
Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime, a vicious group of very hard, terrible people.
and this stark warning.
The lives of courageous American heroes may be lost, and we may have casualties. That often happens in war.
The strikes following a massive military buildup, ships and fighter jets. The president citing Iran's nuclear program and addressing the people of Iran directly.
Now is the time to seize control of your destiny and to unleash the prosperous and glorious future that is close within your reach.
Now this morning, Iran firing back, launching retaliatory strikes, drones and missiles targeting Israel.
As you can hear, the air raid sirens have now started here in Tel Aviv.
And targeting U.S. assets in the region. We have team coverage of these fast-moving developments from the region to the White House and expert analysis. What's next? This is a special edition of Good Morning America, Attack on Iran. And as we say Good Morning America on this major Saturday morning, we are staying on top of that breaking news here. The U.S. and Israel conducting joint strikes on Iran. U.S. officials telling ABC News this combat operation could potentially last several days.
Dramatic images you're seeing there from Tehran showing dark smoke billowing from government buildings. A source briefed on the attack telling us that military and defense sites are the key targets and what the Pentagon is calling Operation Epic Fury. Iran now saying it has launched retaliatory strikes against U.S. assets.
And President Trump posting a video online saying the strikes are directed at Iran's efforts to rebuild its nuclear program. We have team coverage of this escalating conflict. We begin with Chief Foreign Correspondent Ian Pannell in Tel Aviv. Ian, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Whit. Good morning, everyone. Just to explain where we are right now. We've had to take shelter because we just had yet another air raid siren. Iran firing dozens and dozens of missiles towards Israel. Most of them have been intercepted, but as we were coming in, you could see the trails in the sky as those missiles are being stopped. So we're just hunkering down here for now. Meanwhile, President Trump saying, yes, he's going after the nuclear program, but officials also confirming to ABC News that these strikes targeted the president and the supreme leader of Iran. This morning, the US and Israel launching a major wide-scale daytime attack on Iran after weeks of growing tension and military buildup. This massive plume of smoke towering over Tehran, stemming from multiple locations throughout the capital city. Smoke seen rising near government offices and Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's residence, but no word this morning if the 86-year-old cleric was in his office at the time.
A short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran.
In an 8-minute video posted shortly after the strikes began, President Trump confirming what he called major combat operations in Iran. The operation called Epic Fury over what he called imminent threats from the regime.
They attempted to rebuild their nuclear program and to continue developing long-range missiles that can now threaten our very good friends and allies in Europe, our troops stationed overseas, and could soon reach the American homeland.
The president speaking directly to the people of Iran, saying this:
when we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take. This will be probably your only chance for generations.
And with this stark warning that American lives may be lost in this mission.
The Iranian regime seeks to kill. The lives of courageous American heroes may be lost, and we may have casualties. That often happens in war. But we're doing this not for now. We're doing this for the future, and it is a noble mission.
Multiple officials telling ABC News the operation's expected to potentially last several days, with targets including Iranian military sites, government buildings, Iranian intelligence assets and defense installations, and cyber. The US and Israel conducting the assault from the air and sea. The US military poised to attack after a massive buildup in the region in recent weeks. Recent satellite images showing nearly a dozen F-22 fighter jets at a base in southern Israel, rows of refueling and reconnaissance aircraft in Saudi Arabia, and 2 aircraft carrier strike groups moving into position. Here in Israel, sirens warning residents to shelter in place, bracing for Iran's retaliation. The nation under a state of emergency. As you can hear, the air raid sirens have now started here in Tel Aviv. We've heard that the Iranians have launched we presume, missiles at Israel after the attack on Iran earlier today.
לפני שעה קלה יצאו ישראל וארצות הברית.
And Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu releasing a statement thanking Trump and calling for a new regime in Iran, saying the time has come for all segments of the Iranian people to throw off the yoke of tyranny and bring about a free and peaceful Iran. Just last June, the US and Israel had worked together to bomb Iran's nuclear sites in Operation Midnight Hammer. Trump saying then that the facilities were obliterated. Now, as he says Iran has started to rebuild their nuclear capabilities, he insists this time will annihilate them once again, adding this warning to the Iranian regime.
You must lay down your weapons and have complete immunity, or in the alternative, face certain death.
Well, the Iranians had warned that if they were attacked, they would retaliate, that they target US assets and facilities around the region, and that's exactly what we've seen this morning. US facilities in Qatar, in Bahrain, in Jordan, in Kuwait. All of those have come under fire. All of them have been intercepted, all the missiles that were struck at them. But it again underscores the warning that had come from Iran that if the US or Israel attacked, the risk that this could become a wider regional conflict would be very real, and that seems to be happening right now. Gio?
And we see you taking shelter there in Israel. Thank you so much, Ian. Please stay safe. Let's get right to the White House now. Chief White House correspondent Mary Bruce is there. Mary, what are you hearing there?
Good morning again, Gio. Well, President Trump is monitoring these strikes from his Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida, and he is vowing that this massive campaign will devastate Iran's military, raise its nuclear program, and is calling for Iranians to overthrow the government. Now, for weeks, the president has stressed his preference for a diplomatic solution, but it's clear that his patience with these talks has been running thin. The president telling us reporters here at the White House yesterday that he was, quote, not happy with how negotiations were going. He is arguing that these strikes are necessary to defend Americans against an imminent threat, but providing no clear evidence of that claim. In the run-up to this, the president has been pressed repeatedly on why strikes would be needed now, especially as he continues to claim he, quote, obliterated Iran's nuclear program last spring. But Trump has not publicly made the case that Iran is closer to producing a nuclear weapon now, and he has not sought congressional approval for this attack. And now the president, who ran promising not to drag America into foreign wars, is warning that American lives may be lost. Janae.
And no telling how long this could last, Mary Bruce. Thank you to you. And Iran responding by launching those retaliatory strikes on Israel and U.S. assets. So let's bring in Chief Global Affairs Correspondent Martha Raddatz. Martha, what do we know about them targeting U.S. bases and allies in the region?
They've targeted numerous bases in the region. We have 35,000 forces in the Middle East region right now, and they are spread out. Obviously, there are some on ships, there are some on carriers, but in Kuwait, they received missiles. In Bahrain, it actually hit some sort of facility. There are 3,200 Navy personnel there now, the Navy's 5th Fleet. Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, 10,000 Americans are there. And in the UAE, we are told more than a dozen missiles were launched towards the UAE. Now, we have no reports of casualties at this time, but sometimes that takes a while. Back in 2020, when Iran launched retaliatory strikes against al-Assad Air Base in Iraq after Qasem Soleimani was killed by a U.S. drone, they did not know about the casualties for some time because most of them were concussive injuries or traumatic brain injuries. So this is something we're watching very carefully. But those Patriot missile batteries and other defense measures have seemed to work so far, Janae.
And Martha, that's going to be a concern for so many Americans waking up to this news. President Trump warning that U.S. lives could be lost. What does that tell us about the scale of this operation?
It is massive. We now have learned just how big this is and what they're targeting, and that the Iranians were clearly ready to retaliate and ready to retaliate fast. We also know that the president wants to see regime change. This is the most extreme option he really could have chosen. He had an option to do limited strikes. Clearly, he didn't want to do that. We have, as Ian mentioned, they have targeted the president of Iran and the supreme leader. Airbus imagery obtained by the New York Times, satellite imagery obtained by the New York Times through Airbus, shows what you're looking at right there is the compound of Iran's supreme leader. A lot of damage there, unknown whether he was there. It was daytime, so it might be more likely. I believe they have probably been moving around, the president and the supreme leader. They did that back in June during the other operation. So we don't know whether he was in that compound at the time. There was also targeted strike on the president as well. But this is a very high-risk operation, Janae.
All right, Martha Raddatz with those new images and details. Martha, thank you so much. And so coming up here on GMA, we'll have more on the attacks on Iran, including how law enforcement here at home is stepping up security efforts and police presence.
We're back now on GMA with more insights into the U.S.-Israel strike on Iran. We're joined now by ABC News contributor and retired Colonel Steve Ganyard and Lieutenant General Dan Karbler, a former commander of the U.S. Army Space and Middle Defense Command. Welcome to you both. Colonel Ganyard, let's start with you because we saw that strike back in June to take out Iranian nuclear infrastructure. President Trump now citing that nuclear threat once again. Can you walk us through what we know about the nuclear capabilities in Iran and where they've come since that first strike?
Yeah, the problem is it's very difficult to tell. So you remember the first strike back in June when we looked at the satellite images, you could see these little pinpricks, which is where these massive ordnance penetrators went into the ground, went deep underneath into those bunkers, and supposedly exploded. So we think that there was plenty of damage done. Some estimates say a couple of years that the program's been pushed back, but we really didn't know. And recently we've seen some efforts by the Iranians to reinforce the concrete over these areas to prevent a follow-on attack by the U.S. But the real concern here, Whit, is the 1,000 pounds of highly enriched uranium that is missing. The IAEA doesn't know where it is, and that 1,000 pounds of uranium could provide up to 10 nuclear weapons.
General Karbler, want to bring you in now. Any past operations we've seen have been much more limited than what we're seeing this morning, including now learning that these attacks targeted Iran's supreme leader and president. What does that tell us?
Yeah, well, I think the limited attacks were, basically one objective, which was to eliminate their nuclear capability. And now we heard the president's objectives are, in addition to eliminate nuclear capability, it's regime change, and it's also to eliminate their ability to launch ballistic missiles. Now the target set has got so much broader, so many more targets for our forces to now have to get after. So imagine, wherever the ballistic missile sites are, we've got to target those. We've got to target where the production facilities are, where the garrisons are. Nuclear facilities, we're going to retarget them, retarget where those production facilities are. And then in terms of regime change, where are those leaders? You saw in the earlier segment that compound that had been bombed. Well, where are the secondary or tertiary locations where those leaders might be? Or where are the second in command? Or where are some of the lieutenants there that are the second in charge within the regime? Where are they located at? Where are some of those other key figures located at? We have to target them and then retarget. So that's why, previously limited, that's why we're seeing such a broader and more extensive attack operations taking place.
All important questions there. And Steve, we've been talking about how unusual it is to conduct a strike in daylight. This happened after the sun came up this morning here in Tehran. Is that part of the element of surprise here?
Absolutely, it was, Gio. As you know, it's very, very difficult or very easy to track airplanes these days. It's easy to track ships. You have satellites. Anything that has a transponder on it can be tracked. And so that element of tactical surprise, of military surprise, is very, very difficult. So what did the U.S. and Israel do? We're going to conduct the attack in the early morning hours and the daylight hours. Why? Because we'd never done it before. So the perception was that the negotiations were going to continue, that Secretary Rubio was coming to Israel on Monday. And so there was this sense of complacency that the U.S. was able to develop and catch the regime off guard this morning.
And Lieutenant General, we know that more than 30,000 U.S. troops are in the region there in the Middle East. More were on their way. So what are these kind of strikes? What are the risks involved for the U.S. assets in the area? We've already seen retaliatory strikes on at least 6 different countries.
Yeah, everything from the tactical risk to our pilots who are flying those missions over Iranian airspace. So we run the risk of Iranian surface-to-air missiles hitting some of our aircraft. That's why some of those attack operations have got to eliminate the Iranians' ability to launch any of those kind of surface-to-air missiles against us. Obviously, the forces that are in place throughout the Gulf, that's why we have a significant air and missile defense presence there. Patriots, THAADs, our Gulf partners with their air and missile defense capabilities. But also there's some strategic risk in terms of escalation. Will the Iranians now respond not just with missile attacks, but will they do any kind of cyber attacks? And then we've always got to keep in mind, what is Russia and China's response going to be too? And if our eyes are taken away and we're focused on the Middle East, will that give China or Russia an opportunity to move in some different areas that we may not be ready to respond to?
And that is a big question this morning. Lieutenant General Dan Karbler, retired Colonel Steve Ganyard, thank you both for joining us with your analysis this morning. Let's go ahead and bring in Chief Justice Correspondent Pierre Thomas now looking at the threat environment here at home. Pierre, good morning. What are you learning?
Tensions with Iran, but the situation is going to add another layer of concern to what already is likely the most dangerous and challenging threat environment since 9/11. Iran has allegedly contemplated a number of operations in the U.S., including what DOJ described in 2024 as a thwarted plot to assassinate President Trump to avenge the death of a top Iranian military official. Iran has also allegedly targeted dissidents and journalists here at home. And there's always been questions about whether Iran has capabilities inside the U.S. What officials have been perhaps most concerned about is the possibility of Iran launching cyber attacks against the U.S. infrastructure in response to military operations against them. There will likely be stepped-up security at soft targets like synagogues, churches, and other high-profile locations in major U.S. cities. Officials will also be watching whether ISIS, al-Qaeda, and other terror organizations will seek to exploit these military operations to inspire others to attack. And there could be lone wolves and other unstable people reacting for whatever reason. Janae?
All right, Pierre Thomas, our appreciation to you for being with us this morning. We are going to turn now. As we mentioned, Iran has launched retaliatory strikes in the region. ABC's Marcus Moore joins us from Doha this morning, where those retaliatory strikes in places like Jordan, Bahrain, Kuwait, and in Qatar. Marcus.
Yeah, Janae, these are retaliatory strikes that were expected. We are here in Qatar, in Doha, Qatar, where we have heard sporadic loud booms, those air defense interceptors going out into the air. And this is part of the retaliation from Iran to intercept those missiles. Many of them, officials believe, headed to the Al Udeid air base here in Qatar, the largest American base in the Middle East, where there are thousands of U.S. personnel there. That place expected to be a target for the Iranians, and it certainly is adding to the tension here in the region. There have been emergency alert messages that have been sent out to cell phones, Janae, urging people to stay away from military sites and also to shelter in place. Those messages going out to the U.S. Embassy as well. And we also understand that the airspace has been closed in a number of countries, giving you a sense of how tense the situation is here. And there's real concern of this situation. And you may have just heard just behind me with the sound of an explosion. That's what we've been hearing all day today, along with the residents here who are waiting to see what happens next, hoping this doesn't escalate.
Yes, we're seeing the entire region get pulled into this conflict. Marcus Moore for us. We appreciate it.
And this morning, we are looking at the importance of creating generational wealth. Financial and investment expert Ian Dunlap, you might know him as the Master Investor on Instagram. He joins us. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Let's talk about the importance of building generational wealth and some of the historical or systemic barriers that have made that more challenging for Black families.
I mean, of course, you can start with slavery, the GI Bill, of course. Second, if you look at the housing market, redlining has affected that, and now, more recently, DEI erasure. So if we look systemically, those are some of the challenges that we've had with being able to build wealth at a large scale.
So what are some of the key first steps for people to get started?
Number one, financial literacy is important. So take 10 minutes every day to learn about the market. Number two, invest in index funds. So a broad basket of companies to invest in so you don't have to guess which company to invest in. And then third, pick 2 technology companies that you love. Even though Warner Brother and Paramount are now having a marriage, Netflix is still a great stock. Ironically enough, the stock went up on the news. So invest in 2 technology companies, 2 index funds, and you'll be fine.
That's really good advice. I mean, as we were talking about this in high school, when I was 17 years old, I mean, they were just drilling this into me, these mentors. They were telling me how important this financial literacy was. What is it that families need to do to give their kids that financial literacy?
I tell every parent, what I did with my son, I started with 7 minutes every Saturday. I would just go through 5 companies. Hey, this is Apple, this is Microsoft, this is what it does. Number 2, when you're doing your bills and doing your shopping, have them actually pay and tell them what things cost so they understand the value. So like if my son asks me for VC for 2K or skins on Fortnite, I'm like, this is $80. We can either buy this for this game or we can put it here somewhere else in the future. And it gives them a deeper relationship with money.
What do they choose?
Oh, always the skins.
Yeah.
Always. But third, I think it's important to have the conversation early because too often we wait until they're 15 or 20 to have the money conversations and they're left behind. If you start as early as 3, they'll get it by the time they're 7 or 8 years old.
That makes a big difference because then you've got adults who are trying to figure this out too. So for anyone watching at home, at any point in their career, how can they get started?
Number 1, most important thing is to have your investments automated. Because too often we worry about a crash or a pullback. Should we invest? Invest every month. You could automate that. Number 2, there are so many amazing technology companies that you can invest in. You only need 2. And then thirdly, you don't need millions of dollars. You can start with $100. And then the thing I find very interesting, once it works one time, you find money from other areas to then allocate into the market, and then you can scale up to 500.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's so important because many people just feel like they're priced out. Like, this isn't for me, I can't afford it. But what are some of the other big mistakes that people make that prevent them from accomplishing this generational wealth?
Number 1, not having life insurance. It's something so small of not having a life insurance policy. No conversations in the family about financial literacy, because if you hand down, let's say $100,000, if your family member doesn't know what to do with it, it's going to get wasted. And then third, no estate planning. Like, you have to have a plan for how the money is passed down. You need a trust, you need a will. So just having these conversations more often on a day like today is really important so that you can have a plan to pass it down to your children.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, but just on that point, those are very difficult conversations,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
You're talking about, the end of your life and what to do with your assets and stuff like that. Perhaps how do you approach those conversations in a meaningful way?
I think it's important to start early. You may not want to bring up the death conversation, but to equip them if anything happens, this is where you can find the life insurance information. Here's your estate planner. You have to have them. If not, sometimes properties end up in probate. You don't want that. And then you may have family members who may say, well, this was left to me, and they may take them from your child. You don't want that theft from your investment portfolio to happen to you.
Yeah, it is facing those tough conversations head on. We appreciate you being with us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And still coming up here on GMA, a new report warns of rising heart disease risk for women of all ages. Dr. Leah Kroll is here to break down what you need to know.
We are back now on GMA, and a new report from the American Heart Association projects that 60% of women in the U.S., 60% will have at least one cardiovascular disease by 2050. Dr. Leah Kroll is here to break this all down for us. Dr. Kroll, good morning to you.
Good morning.
We were talking ahead of time before we came here. You said this is incredibly alarming. What can you tell us about this report?
It's a big deal. It's basically a warning about where women's health is headed if nothing changes from here. So as you mentioned, the report forecasts by 2050, 60% of women will have some form of cardiovascular disease. That could be coronary artery disease in the heart, strokes, you name it. It's being driven by a surge in preventable risk factors like high blood pressure, obesity. Specifically, the report says by 2050, 60% of women will have high blood pressure, 25% will have diabetes. But what really stands out to me, you guys, is which women are getting hit by these trends the hardest. And that's women of color and younger women. So Black women forecasted to have the largest burden of cardiovascular disease and also the greatest increase overall. Hispanic women expected to see the biggest jump in high blood pressure. Asian women expected to see the biggest jump in obesity. And unfortunately, young women and even girls are at risk for cardiovascular disease moving forward. One statistic that really jumped out was that by 2050, a third of all women 22 to 44 years old will have cardiovascular disease. That's compared to less than 1 in 4 right now. So really, we need to start thinking thinking if you're old enough to get pregnant, you could be old enough to develop heart disease.
Oh my gosh. And Dr. Lee, I'm so struck because first off, you said a number of preventable risk factors, but these same demographics face challenges already in medical disparity when it comes to childbirth, all of these things that women are facing. So what are some ways that women can lower their risks?
So prevention is the best medicine, and this is not about big dramatic changes. It's more small, consistent habits over time. So number one, really know your numbers and your health. That means knowing your blood pressure, blood sugar, cholesterol, weight. Are they in healthy ranges? Move every day. Ideally, I want people to get 150 minutes per week of moderate intensity exercise. Aiming for the Mediterranean diet, that means eating less processed foods, more whole foods like fruits, vegetables, whole grains, lean proteins, healthy fats. Prioritizing sleep 7 to 9 hours a night. Quitting tobacco, limiting alcohol, and talking to your doctor about your individual risk for heart disease a lot sooner than you think.
Well, what's really crazy about this, you were telling us that heart disease is already the leading cause of death for women in the U.S. So why are these numbers expected to get so much worse?
Gio, this comes down to biology plus life experience, and there's several layers to this. The first is that women have these unique hormonal transitions, right? Pregnancy, perimenopause, menopause, and if we're not paying attention to them in that time, those things can actually contribute to our risk for cardiovascular disease. That's especially true if you have a history of conditions like endometriosis, PCOS, early menopause, complications in pregnancy like preeclampsia. Then we have women developing these risk factors at younger and younger ages, which means they're being exposed for longer periods of time, and that increases your lifetime exposure. And finally, none of this happens in a vacuum. So we talk about the social determinants of health that really amplify the disparities women see, things like access to good care or not, access to healthy food or not, having the luxury of exercise, bearing the burden of chronic stress. These things meaningfully impact a woman's health over the course of her life, and that's especially true for women of color.
We don't have much time left here, but just is there, I know this is a projection, but is there any silver lining in this report, in this research?
It's a projection, it's not destiny. So if we take it for the wake-up call that it is, there's a lot of good we can do here. 80% of heart disease and strokes are preventable. We just have to focus on early prevention and awareness for women.
Take it for the wake-up call that it is. Dr. Leah Kroll, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really
This was
important.
fantastic.
Yeah,
Thank
really.
you.
Thank you.
Still coming up here on GMA, we're on the road to the Oscars. Michael B. Jordan and Ryan Coogler talk about their historic nomination when we return.
You know, we took the kids to school.
All right, we are back now with the road to the Oscars. The movie Sinners has already made Oscars history with a record 16 nominations, and Chris Connolly talked to the creative duo behind the film's success, the amazing Michael B. Jordan and writer-director Ryan Coogler.
They met as 20-somethings in 2011 at a Starbucks when Ryan Coogler was readying his first film, Fruitvale Station, and Michael B. Jordan had questions.
I was at a crossroads. Am I just a supporting character? Can I lead a film? I shared it with Coog, and he, you know, reassured me, and he was like, yo, Mike, I think you're a movie star. Let's go do this.
That might have been one of the last times you could go in a Starbucks.
15 years later, they're both A-listers, and Sinners earned a record-breaking 16 Oscar nominations on Academy Award morning.
I was in the bed.
You overslept.
I overslept. I looked at my phone and I saw the amount of missed calls and unread messages. I knew it had to be something positive. And then I just called my mom immediately.
Yeah, what's that like to talk to your mother after you've just made history with your movie?
I mean, it felt great, you know, just to kind of hear her happiness and joy, you know, and knowing how much that, you know, she poured into me, into this dream, that this was gonna, you know, lead me to someplace fruitful.
Zinzi Coogler, Ryan's spouse, also nominated as a Sinners producer.
I was at home in the Bay Area. We watched together, and we had to take the kids to school. And I was like, yo, we got to do something. It was her first time being nominated, you know, so I figured I'd take her to get waffles. So we went to this waffle shop in Alameda.
That's dope.
It was awesome, man.
Jordan and Coogler's fifth collab after the Rocky-derived Creed and the Black Panther movies. Sinners is an original from a visionary filmmaker.
We back now. So for him to be able to have the freedom to build this world, I think we got a glimpse of what a Ryan Coogler movie could be without any limitations.
I'm inspired by things around me and people from my life. A big inspiration for this movie is somebody who passed away, you know, going on 11 years ago.
Your Uncle James.
My Uncle James, that's correct. I'm very reactive as a writer to things that are around me, to things that inspire me, and I internalize it and try to make something that I would want to see.
It was through his uncle James Edmondson that Coogler first heard the blues, music that would breathe such vivid life into the 1932 Clarksdale, Mississippi of Sinners.
Blues music in the church, and these things that are said to be opposites. But when you juxtapose them, you realize that they're more like mirror images of each other. They're more like twins.
It'd be Jordan playing the twins, smoking the blue cap, stacking the red fedora, crafting backstories and creating distinct looks as these two open a juke joint.
I heard you wore a different shoe for each.
Yeah, Smoke, I got a size too big shoe, and Stack was a half size too small. And Stack being a little bit more, buoyant. Smoke, he's the parental of the two. A size too big shoe, you don't really want to move around too fast.
What makes this man special, Ryan, as an actor?
I think he has a lot of intangibles. There's a magic to Mike that I think like Tom Hanks has, where you see him and you care about him. As an actor, he's done everything. So what that gives him is an incredible amount of empathy when he's on the screen and in space with another actor. And then the other thing he has is this incredible drive. Like he wants to be great. So you got all of these things like Mike.
You told me once, well, my father gave me this name.
Yeah.
I better be competitive.
I got to be competitive at something. He set me up from the womb with Michael Jordan. It so happened there was this other Jordan in the late 80s running rampant in the league. And never knew what quite that was going to do to my childhood.
And the merchandise.
And the merchandise, too. It made me want to have my own identity. I knew I was going to be competitive at something. I didn't know what it was going to be.
What makes this collaboration special?
I think we're both team players. We complement one another.
It comes from working together often, and you develop a rhythm to kind of know what the other person might need at a particular time to achieve a certain goal.
Every day it reminds me that it's achieved and made the impact that it has. And the audience spoke volumes, about what they felt about it. And that's the biggest reward for us.
For Good Morning America, Chris Connolly, ABC News, Los Angeles.
That duo.
Oh, that was an incredible conversation. The shoes, all of it. You can watch the Oscars Sunday, March 15th, right here on ABC. Streams live on Hulu. You're going to be there.
I'll be there once again on the carpet. GMA, Saturday and Sunday.
You just
in the
finished watching all the movies, right?
I've seen all the movies. I've seen Sinners multiple times.
Yes.
So it's going to be a great award show for sure. And Cheryl from our Chicago station, WLS, so great to have you this morning on this busy morning here.
Great to be here. And you can monitor all the latest developments from the U.S.-Israel strike on Iran on ABC News Live.
And, of course, on World News Tonight with Whit. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.